Commission. Opinion WRFG operates on the frequency of 89.3 megahertz as authorized by the Federal Communications Commission. Opinions expressed on WRFG do not necessarily represent the opinions of Radio Free Georgia Broadcasting, Inc., its staff, or volunteers. This program contains language and/or information which may be strong for some listeners. Portions of this program are pre-recorded. Discretion is advised.
You are listening to WRFG Atlanta. WRFG provides a voice for those who have been traditionally denied open access to the broadcast media through the involvement of a broad base of community elements to guarantee that access. In the utilization of the station's facilities and in its programs, the following communities will receive first priority: those who continue to be denied free and open access to the broadcast media, and those who suffer oppression or exploitation based upon class, race, sex, age, creed, sexual orientation, disability, or immigrant status.
This program is made possible by listeners like you and the following sponsors. Twilight Productions 2 presents a Mother's Day celebration with the return of Beanie Man, hosted by DJ Chigga and DJ Mixmaster David on Sunday, May 11th at 6:30 p.m. at the ViStar Amphitheater at the Bridge in Stockbridge, Georgia. For tickets and more information, the websites are ViStarAmphitheater.com and FreshTix.com. That's ViStar, spelled VYSTAR, Amphitheater.com, and FreshTix, spelled FRESTIX.com.
Yeah. Holding up ancestral struggle, fight for those who have been underprivileged. Disenfranchised and taking advantage of, them and those who give their life. Them and liberation. Victory. Liberation fighters, liberation, liberation fighters. Lord, I gather my sword and my shield, yeah, on the battlefield. I know the dragon seeking souls to steal, yeah, on the battlefield. We're gonna triumph over wicked, yeah, on the battlefield. I know them defeat on sight and seal, yes, on the battlefield. We wrestle against flesh and blood and spiritual wickedness in high and low places. We wrestle against flesh and blood and spiritual wickedness in high and low places. Liberation fighters. Liberation fighters. African ancestors did a fight on the battlefield, and many soldiers lose their lives, yeah, on the battlefield. For we wrestle against flesh and blood and spiritual wickedness in high and low places. We wrestle against flesh and blood and spiritual wickedness in high and low places. Liberation, 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 liberation fighters, liberation, 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 liberation fighters. Long mentally, critical and spiritual unity, with honor and dignity, fighting for the people, the rights of the people. Shout victory, yeah, on the battlefield. Emancipation is what we need. And spiritual wickedness in high and low places. We wrestle against flesh and blood and spiritual wickedness in high and low places. Liberation, 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 liberation fighters. Liberation, 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 liberation fighters.
We'll pour to the creative spirit the great Ashe out of which we all emerge. Ashe.
Ashe.
We pour to that creative spirit by whatever name we know it, whatever name you hold in your heart, in your mind, whatever name your ancestors gave, whatever name you learned as a child, whatever name you believe it to be, whatever name you believe it to be in spirit or in science. Ashe.
Ashe.
We pour to the first human beings who came into existence on this planet, the first human beings who raised the first structures, who cooked the first meals, who taught the first children, who had the first children, the first Africans, the first people, who stood upright, who walked, who figured out how to stay on this planet, who figured out how to pass that knowledge on to their children and their children's children, the mothers and fathers of civilization. Ashe.
Ashe.
We pour the next libation to their grandchildren, their children's children, those who raised the great early civilizations of Kemet and Kush and Monomotapa, the great medieval civilizations of Ghana and Mali and Songhai and Kanem Bornu. We pour to those who the great civilizations of the Igbo people and the Hausa people and the Kikongo people and the Mambara people, the great Mande civilizations, the great Kikongo, the great civilizations of Southern Africa, the Bantu people, the great civilizations of Southeast Africa, the Dinka, the Shilluk, the Noor. We pour to those millions who raised the foundations from which the world would learn what it meant to be human in the world. Ashe.
Ashe.
We pour to their children who upon the arrival on the shores of people they had never seen before, found themselves captured and marched overland, found themselves perishing by the millions before they were held on the holding cells and the open air pens on the coast of West, Central, Southern, and East Africa. We pour to the ancestors who did not know as they were stripped of all clothing and sent denuded into boats, packed like animals, and strewn their bones across the floor of the Atlantic and the Indian Ocean. We pour to them who in the last moment on Africa grabbed the sand and grabbed the dirt and put it in their mouths and understood that the only thing they might have to preserve their place in that continent was their memory of that place and their ability to pass it on to their children. We pour to them. Ashe.
Ashe.
We pour to those Africans and their children who finding themselves cast adrift in Santiago, Cuba, who found themselves cast adrift in Porta, Spain, Trinidad, and Port-au-Prince, Haiti, who found themselves cast adrift in New Orleans and Charleston and Mobile, who found themselves cast adrift in Salvador, Bahia, who found themselves cast adrift in Barbados and the archipelago that formed the wayward and the windward coast. We found them in these places learning Portuguese and Spanish and French, whose often first words was, "Oh my God, oh Madre de Dios," who found themselves praying to survive and pass on to their children the memories. We pour to those ancestors who are represented in the thousands buried in all the square miles of where we stand, and who sit here buried before us in 400 caskets forged of wood from West Africa with Adinkra symbols. Each one of them, each woman, man, and child, symbolic of millions. The children of those who could not be killed, we pour Ashe.
Ashe.
We pour to their children who somehow survived the hells of enslavement and fought for emancipation in the Caribbean, the French, British, Dutch Caribbean, who fought for emancipation in South America, who fought for emancipation in Central America, who fought the struggles we refer to as the Civil War in the United States, who came out of that, marched out of enslavement through Reconstruction, and found themselves making great migrations, eventually ending up in places like New York. Their children's children, who making a way for themselves became our great-great-grandparents, our grandparents, our great-grandparents, our parents. Those who, when the first bones were discovered in this space, held their hands and said, "Stop, no more." We are here to speak for those who can no longer speak with their mouths. We pour for those ancestors, some of whom came to Howard University in 2004 and followed these caskets all the way back to New York. The ones whose names we know and the ones whose names we don't. And at this moment, as we pour this libation, I would ask anyone who feels comfortable to say the name of someone in your bloodline who is no longer physically here, but who you know made it possible for you to be here. Go ahead, let's hear the names. We pour to the names that we hold collectively. Ganga Zumba in Brazil, Toussaint Louverture, Jean-Jacques Dessalines, and Henri Christophe in Haiti. We pour to the great Avengers, Nanny of the Maroons of Jamaica. We pour to the great ancestors, Harriet Tubman, Sojourner Truth, Frederick Douglass. Say the names that you study. Who are the names of the ancestors that you have come to hold in your heart and your mind as you hope that you can do what they did for us, for your children and children's children? Let's say some of those famous names. Malcolm X, John Henry Clark, John G. Jackson, Jacob Carruthers. And finally, two final libations. We pour to those who make it possible for us to do what we do. We pour to these rangers who stand guardian over this sacred space. We pour to these Africans and these folks who have come from Howard University, the staff, the faculty, the administrators who brought us here today to bear witness. This is not a libation, but an affirmation, because their hearts still beat, their tongues still speak, their minds still think, and their minds still wish the best for us. We pour for all of those people who surrounded us on this journey today and made it possible for us to be here. We pour this affirmation of thanks, Ashe.
Ashe.
And finally, we pour to your children's children's children who will one day stand on this space and speak your name. Ashe.
Ashe.
We gonna triumph over wicked, yeah. On the battlefield, I know them defeat on sign and seal, yes. Oh, on the battlefield. Oh, we wrestle against flesh and blood and spiritual wickedness in high and low places. We wrestle against flesh and blood and spiritual wickedness in high and low places. Liberation fighters. Liberation fighters. African ancestors did a fight on the battlefield. Native Americans still a fight, yeah, on the battlefield. Many great women still a fight on the battlefield, and many soldiers lose their lives, yeah, on the battlefield. For we wrestle against flesh and blood and spiritual wickedness in high and low places. We wrestle against flesh and blood and spiritual wickedness in high and low places. Liberation, 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 liberation fighters. Liberation, 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 liberation fighters. Long mentally, critical and spiritual unity, with honor and dignity, fighting for the people, the rights of the people. Shout victory, yeah, on the battlefield. Emancipation is what we need, yeah, we're fighting on the battlefield. Oh, we wrestle against flesh and blood and spiritual.
Of 8, 9, 10, and 12, give them a special hand. At the other end of the pole, there were people like me, over 60, some a little more feeble than I, but brave at heart. And in the middle were the souls of the earth, those in their prime, who are custodians of all the energy of the revolution, which we have to fight for our freedom and well-being. Our program this afternoon is simple. The Patriotic Coalition called this march to get the people to take part in a fight to better our own conditions, the conditions of the people. To better these conditions in various ways. The coalition was formed because of the denial of the right to vote. And the right to vote does not mean going into a ballot place and scratching a paper. It also means the right to have those votes honestly counted. Today is the anniversary of Sharpeville, the day when they shot down scores of people in South Africa at the place of that name, representing an extreme form of denial of human rights. There the struggle took a very bloody form of repression. It is not because our struggle here is not very bloody, except for a few selective assassinations and work of bandits. It is not because of that we also do not suffer denials. And today is a day of denial, not only a day when we look at our denials, but a day when we have taken a long step to turning back these denials. And what is beautiful about this step, it is a step taken not by leaders, but by people, men and women, working together. Because one of the things we are denied in Guyana is official respect for the rights of women. They talk a lot about emancipation of women. They are willing to say that. But when a woman wants to be defended against the ravages of some mad beast, there is no official sanction. Such people are promoted. Briefly then, we are denied the means of life. We are denied the right to vote. We are denied the right to a living wage and to decent conditions of life. And I'm sure the speakers will be talking about this living wage. You know that the scandalous offer at present made to the TUC is $19.40 a day after 127% evaluation. And along the march, we are denied the right to take part, like intelligent people, men and women all over Guyana, in deciding the future of this country. And the speakers will spell out for you the fact that the Patriotic Coalition for Democracy has taken a big step to tell the president that we are not going to be left out much longer.
And to quality music, we just thank for life and the opportunity to be here together in this sacred space, wherever we gather, whenever we have the opportunity to share thoughts, share ideas, share affirmations, share our vision, you know, to remind each other of that which we cannot afford to forget. We create this beautiful format, this beautiful forum, beautiful platform called WRFG Radio, Radio 2 Georgia. 51 years, strong. And we are grateful. I want to say much love to each doctor. Baba Eusi Kwayana in our place. In our place. Share some more about that a little bit later. We were here in Guyana. That's like just arrived a few hours ago from places out there celebrating our Baba Eusi Kwayana, his 100th birthday. And it's just a really joyful time to be around. And when we say joyful, let me be clear, because of course we don't apologize for joy. Joy is our birthright. You know? And even it doesn't always look like a smiling face or a laugh. Sometimes even the ability to see the resilient energy that exists in our humanity in the midst of all kind of madness. The ability to see the striving, the unfathomable courage that people display on a daily basis. Again, in the midst of great odds, all of that brings joy, you know, because it reminds us of who we are, and as some would say, whose we are. Tune into yourself. As we came in, we heard a little clip from a march that took place in 1987 in Guyana, and that was Baba Eusi speaking there. Kitty Market Square. I was literally there almost 24 hours ago to the minute in that Kitty Market Square, you know, handling some business. We know that the more things change, the more they stay the same. And we also know that everything must change. Everything must change. Change is the only constant in the world. We also heard from our brother Batch bringing a tune called Liberation, anthem music here on the Ancestral Rock. We heard from Dr. Greg Electro Carr giving us the libation poured at the African Burial Ground in New York City many years ago. Again, another reminder that the very wealth of this empire, this settler colony, is built literally, not only figuratively, literally, on the bones of African people. Stay tuned to yourself. We're here until the 4 o'clock hour. Special guest coming up in the 3 o'clock hour. Mama Marimba Ani. In the meantime, we're just going to do some storytelling the way we know how to do it, you know. Our kind of way. The music has a message, and we give thanks for the opportunity to be here together with you. I want to say enough respect to those of you who did pledge, who did create your vortex of giving and reinvestment in yourself during the spring pledge drive. And we thank you ahead of time for fulfilling that pledge, you know, for fulfilling that pledge and making it all tangible so that we can continue to do what we have been able to do for 5 decades and counting, to be the voice of the voiceless. Oftentimes you hear that, you might have heard me say it before, you hear those things and they may sound cliche. However, we know for a fact that when we talk about the voice of the voiceless, WRFG has got receipts. Let me just keep it at that. WRFG got receipts, and we continue to be so. So we give thanks. Stay tuned, y'all.
Actually on August 17th, 1988, in honor of the Honorable Marcus Garvey. And it has continued as such until this present time. It does a lot of activities concerning the education and liberation of our people. But in addition to that, in 1994, we started the Freedom Party. And the purpose of the Freedom Party was to continue the legacy of Fannie Lou Hamer and the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party, and to give black people a political voice, one in which is not shared by participating in the Democratic Party. And so, and obviously, Sister Hamer made that very clear in her confrontation with President Lyndon Baines Johnson in Atlantic City in 1964. And so that has continued until this present time, and there have been times when we have sought ballot access, and it should be pointed out that New York is a very racist state. and it basically only see black people as participating in plantation politics. In that we are basically like we would be on a plantation where only our labor is needed, but not our advice, not our ability to bargain, not our ability to promote our own self-interest, or any of those things. And that's basically the same condition that we had on the plantation. And so the Freedom Party has tried to break away from that, but of course, as you can understand, it's not in the best interest of white supremacists for black people to have their own political voice, to be able to leverage their numbers, and to be able to bargain for things that are in their best interest.
Right. You, of course, have been at the forefront of some highly publicized cases, like what you already mentioned, Tawana Brawley. We also have the Central Park 7 among them. And, I noticed that one of your Central Park 7 foremost nemesis is now running for president. Okay. And he is not offering any apologies at all towards any of them, even though it's been proven that they are not the rapists of that job.
Well, there's no question about it. And I think what is dangerous about Donald Trump and his candidacy is that people do not know just how involved he was in the annihilation of the Central Park 7 if he had his own way. And so, among other things, he called for the execution of these young boys, despite the fact that the Supreme Court itself had ruled that the execution of juveniles is unconstitutional. Innocent black and Latino boys. And then afterwards, he also went after the attorneys, particularly the black attorneys. And people don't mention this, but all 4 of the black attorneys who had temerity to speak out on behalf of these 7 boys, were actually disciplined themselves. 3 of those lawyers were disbarred, and the other one was suspended for a specific period of time. And so it shows you how vicious this man can be, and he has the same mentality as white would have had in the Scottsboro boys case in Alabama. Had 4 black lawyers showed up at that particular time to defend them.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. The next step for him to do, after doing all that, calling for the execution, the next step after that would be to call for another Tulsa. And he just bombed New York City altogether just out of, angst towards that Central Park 7.
Well, I think that's in his cards if he gets an opportunity to be president of the United States. Because from a business point of view, and I think black people got to look at Donald Trump from a business point of view. Donald Trump is the graduate of a military academy. And in addition to being a graduate of a military academy, he is also a graduate of the Wharton School of Finance. And the question then becomes, are we still useful to the United States? Some black people like to flatter themselves and believe that we are. I'm one of those who don't believe that. I'm one of those who realize that way back as far as Dred Scott, and certainly beyond that to the formation of the U.S. Constitution, what we don't realize is that the political system in this country is based on a balance of power. And so it doesn't matter whether we are part of that balance, as the so-called founding father was concerned about when they made us 3/5 of a person back in 1987, or whether they bring in refugees or they bring in immigrants, or they bring in any other group who's not a part of the United States landscape right now, and put them as replacements for us in the balance of power. And I am one of those who suggest that anybody who understands anything about a business would have to readily conclude that we are the odd persons out. This is a game of musical chairs, and when the music stops, if we are not correcting ourselves right now, we're going to be standing, which means we're going to be eliminated.
Mm-hmm. Very profound. The thing about it also, if I can add, I remember there's somebody on Twitter addressed Mr. Trump.
I don't want to deal with no strife. No, 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 no. Tell me, why are you scared of me? Do I really seem so threatening? Why are you scared of me? I'm only trying to make a living. When you see me on the street and you don't want to talk to me, that I feel your business and not for me, you see. Me name when me name and come for do with me, I do. Every man have to go through. Why are you scared of me? Do I really seem so threatening? Why are you scared of me? I'm only trying to make a living. Why are you scared of me? To make a living. I'm a humble little man from out of Florida. Sit back and jam, I don't play with no one. Eat sugar cane and enough yellow yam. Then Washington I summit and why are you scared of me? Do I really seem so threatening? Why are you scared of me? I'm only trying to make a living. Send me bun me sentimilla, giving praises to Jah. Respect is due to the higher power. The workers of iniquity can't prosper. Iniquity don't bother me. Man, you've got to free up the vibes. I don't want to deal with no strife. No, 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 no. I'm a runner and a soldier for the Almighty. Enough little Eden try to criticize me. I'm putting my trust in a Jah, you see. Iniquity doesn't bother me. Why are you scared of me? Do I really seem so threatening? Why are you scared of me? I'm only trying to make a living. Ooh, disrespect can bring you destruction. Be careful what you say. Disrespect can bring you destruction. No, 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 no. You've got to free up the vibe. I don't want to deal with no strife. And you've got to free up the vibe. Ooh. Tell me, why are you scared of me? Do I really seem so threatening? Why are
Blessed be unto thee. This is what the world have been waiting for. Being him alongside Luciana. God knows. And a mercy. And a mercy.
we gotta chase those crazy bullets out of town?
Well, I said no for them a circus clown.
Chase those crazy bullets out of town.
Babylon, you better get out of town.
Cause I and I built the cabin.
God knows.
And I and I plant the corn.
Teach them, teach them.
Didn't my people before me slave for this country?
Well, mean is thing that I'm a blocking prison like a white kid and living in a white man world. False education, destroy a nation. what? Matching up for boys and girls, cause all the rich man face is only modernization, while the youth man in the ghetto face operation. Man have the job to get them money, not them right, and be mine all themselves with them picnic and them woman. You them have a tendency to turn to them one. You put down your gun and put your trust in the Almighty One. Luciana, my virgin, come down, come sing your song. So sing along.
To chase those crazy bullets out of town.
Cause I turn up for them a circus clown.
Chase those crazy bumpers out of town.
Well, Babylon, you better get out of town.
They built a penitentiary.
God have mercy.
We built your school.
God knows.
Brainwash education. Trying to make us to fools.
What them do again? What them do again?
Hatred you reward for love. Telling us of you got about.
See it. So we're gonna
change those crazy.
All crazy ballhead.
Change those crazy.
Glorious be to the Most High. Joe Rastafari. Oh, na 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 na. Hey, it's a snare rabbit. I just see I send them well. Free music feed them well. See the Christian we call them, yeah. Cause all the devil control them. Sky. I still see I send them well. Can music we play them, yeah. Mr. Robbie, my best them well. Taxi gun come tell them that.
Will save us anyway. A world unity of African people. And I looked at some new information I have on the Black untouchables of India, numbering more than 100 million, and how they became untouchables. In the introduction of the concept of untouchability, the large number of African people in the millions in the Pacific. And I looked again at my research file on the destruction of the African people in an island of Tasmania, where every single man, woman, and child was put to death. I wondered again about the international position of African people. But in my approach to Pan-Africanism for Senegal, I did not start my approach to the subject with 1900, when H. Sylvester Williams of Trinidad called the first conference in London. I started it 500 years before, when slaves on a ship, knowing what we seem to have forgotten, that though they came from different parts of Africa, different so-called tribes, spoke different languages, they all had the same problem and the same oppressor. This very evening, in a meeting at the Caribbean Cultural Center, we were discussing African culture, how to reclaim it. An Afro-American girl says she's just beginning to understand her culture, and she resents the fact that people just talk about slavery instead of culture. And a Nigerian student, lady, said that she has no culture problem. I'm from Nigeria, and I'm acquainted with my culture. And I've had no cultural disruption, which proves she's brainwashed by the West. A large number of the slaves who came to the West were Yorubas from Nigeria. Most of the revolts were set in motion by Yorubas, led by Akans from Ghana. Now let me illustrate this for a moment, then I'm going to go into the lesson, go into the lecture. Toussaint Louverture was a Akan, but he didn't set the Haitian Revolution in motion. The person that set it in motion was a Yoruba, Bokman, a priest. The revolt in Guyana, led by Kofi, well led by Kofi. But the man that set it in motion was Ankara, a Yoruba. The Yorubas and the Akans developed a partnership away from Africa that they never had in Africa. The same thing is true of the revolts in Brazil. It is the Yoruba culture that held it together. And they couldn't get to them until they broke through that strong Yoruba culture. The main staying power of the revolt in the Western world was Yoruba. When we look at Nat Turner, Dinmogbisi, Gabriel Prosser, we find the same kind of process. Then the young lady said that she understands Thomas Sobel because he said other ethnic groups built stores, factories, and pulled themselves up, and see no reason why blacks shouldn't do the same thing. A few years ago at a meeting in Washington, it was really a meeting of anti-Zionist Jews, and I happened to be one of the speakers. And afterward, some foreigner, a German, came over to me and says, "You know, Professor Clark, other groups in America have pulled themselves up by their bootstrings. Why haven't your people done the same thing?" I lost my cool and I said that because someone stole our boots, you racist. People are expecting the impossible of us. Pull yourself up by your bootstring and you got no boots. The neatest trick of the week, if you manage to bring it off. Then it's going to, she said that, why don't blacks progress like other groups? I said, look, every group came here looking for something. We were not brought here to be given democracy, citizenship. When the American dream was dreamed, it wasn't dreamed for us. When the American promise was made, it wasn't made to us. At the turn of the century, our family was less than 50 years old because during slavery, it was against the law to have a family. Now you expect our family to be the same as other people's family? And we just put it together the day before yesterday? Now the same man who's judging you and writing the textbooks about you is the man that broke up your family in the first place and made it a law against the law for someone to teach you to read. That's the same man that calling you dumb. And too many times we accept the blame for a lot of things. A lack of stimulation, a lack of black hero worship. Where you gonna see a black hero? You look into all the television you look at. Where are you gonna see a black hero? Remember when Bill Crosby played in I Spy? He couldn't even get a black woman. And when he got one, he lost. This other guy was knocking over blondes and brunettes all over the place. Oh no, they said a black man's a criminal if he have feelings the other way, but the mass media has given him feelings the other way. Because the mass media in 20 minutes can do more educating than other people can do in 20 hours. With our kids looking at all these misconceptions of the hero and never seeing themselves emerge as the hero. He has some misconceptions about himself and his ability to be a hero. In this discussion, talking about culture and how to infuse our culture into the curricula, everybody forgot to emphasize that slavery was a war on our culture. It was a war on the culture of all the non-European people of the whole world. And that the most cultured people in the world were told they had no culture and also had no God that was worth worshiping. So the European not only gave you a new psyche, a new mentality, new clothes to wear, a new God to worship, then he didn't have to build jails. His building jails was redundant because he already had you in one and still have you in one. When I look at this beautiful Nigerian girl spouting all this conservative nonsense, like she knows her history already, and I just asked her a simple question. How did Nigeria get its name? It wasn't always named Nigeria. How did it get its name? All right, very simple. Near the end of the 19th century, Lord Lugard was governing all that territory for England. And the chartered companies, these commercial companies, had their own armies governing each territory, all of them rapers, all of them gangsters. Same as the two gangsters in Washington now arguing over territory. You think you got a friend among them. Just like gangsters, you take the east side, I take the west side, don't you bother my territory, I won't bother yours. They ain't talking about socialism, and one's a socialist. They ain't talking about capitalism, and one's a capitalist. They ain't talking about Christianity, and one's a Christian. They ain't talking about democracy, and another one's supposed to believe in that. They're talking about territory, how to control it, and the fact that the white people of the world have dwindled to 1/5 of the world's population. And if they don't watch themselves in bed or out of bed, we will discover they are the minority. So once they put it together, they're going to have to ask them.
Rasta don't work for no CIA.
have mercy. He'll enjoy. So just say, according to your word, you will get paid. So try to live in an upright way. Tell the people what to say. Yeah. Rastaman, don't put Jesus in God. He puts his trust in the older one. Never give his strength unto the beast, so you better leave him. Leave him in peace. So just say, according to your words, you will get paid. So try to live in an upright way. Tell the people what to say. Tell them to watch and pray. Don't let them go astray.
Sounds like the man called Dreadlock. As we come up to the top of the hour, as we said, we are very excited about a special guest that will be joining us in the next hour to talk about spiritual warfare. Through the means, through the forum, through the vessel of storytelling. You know that this whole life that we're living is comprised of many stories, and some that we've, as Dr. John Henry Clark was just mentioning, some that we have ingested, some stories that are alien stories that we've ingested and taken to be our reality, and many stories that are our own that could be very empowering, but in some ways, or in many ways, many different ways, because of the teaching of a colonial mentality, of an imperialistic mentality, we deny these stories. The stories that our genes, our very cells, speak to us in profound ways about what we rejected in the Western world. Some people will even go as far as to tell you, if you're hearing these sounds, if you're hearing these voices talking to you about your liberation, then you must be crazy. Things like that, The phone number up here is 404-523-8989, 404-523-8989. We're going to take a short break to take care of some station business and come right forward with our special guest for the next hour, Mama Marimba Ani. Do remember that funding for this program has been brought to you in part by the following sponsors.
Funding for this program is made possible by listeners like you and the following sponsors. Twilight Productions 2 presents a Mother's Day celebration with the return of Beanie Man, hosted by DJ Chigga and DJ Mixmaster David on Sunday, May 11th at 6:30 p.m. at the ViStar Amphitheater at the Bridge in Stockbridge, Georgia. For tickets and more information, the websites are ViStarAmphitheater.com and freshchicks.com. That's Vystar, spelled VYSTAR, amphitheater.com, and Fresh Chicks, spelled FRESHTIX.com.
WRFG Atlanta.
And the reason why I say that is because, unlike most speakers, this man can talk about education and psychology and a lot of other subjects. But he also has a knowledge of military science. See, that's what's missing in the black community. We're not studying military science. We're not studying the victories of Hannibal and how that was able to be achieved. We need military scientists in the community. We need people who have studied military science, and I am always pleased to hear this man because somehow or another I was fascinated with military science when I was 8, 7, 6, 5 years old in Noonan, Georgia. Couldn't go to the library, but I remember we used to go up to Atlanta and I would buy war books, military science books on how to fight battles. Had I had my own country, I would have wanted to be a general. But since we have no country, no need of me being a Colin Powell. But I've always been fascinated with the subject, and I've always studied the subject, and that subject is very important in your daily life. If you've never studied military science, tomorrow morning you should go to bookstores and pick up some books. I've given you before names of some books. One of them is The Art of War. All right? That's one of the great books, The Art of War. It should be studied by everybody. There shouldn't be a black man in here who has not read that book from cover to cover. Twice. That's right. The Art of War. Books on guerrilla warfare. That's right. Serious books, serious discourse. So this is why I like this particular speaker, because a lot of people talk about a lot of other things and don't talk about military science. We need military scientists. Yo, I know they after me. Good. But in the meantime, while they're planning on my demise, let us hear from our speaker for the night, Dr. Amos Wilson. Let's give him a big hand.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you kindly. Thank you very, very much. I appreciate your warm welcome. It's always a pleasure to be back here with you, to share this time and space with you. And certainly your emphasis there on military science is quite appropriate. I found it interesting, for instance, in last week's, I believe it's maybe the New York Times, to see that Sears Roebuck hired a general to head its logistics department. In fact, I believe he was the general responsible for the logistics in the Middle East and Somalia. We often forget that there's a very definite relationship between business and military strategy. In fact, business and military strategy are one and the same. And that's one of the reasons why the Japanese and the Orientals are very good at their economic strategy, because military science is a built-in part of their culture.
WRFG Atlanta, WRFG Atlanta, WRFG.org. As many of y'all know, in the Western Hemisphere, to the people who are in connection with our Mama Earth, this is another new year. There's many new years, in many different ways. Physically, when we see things coming out of their gestation period into a time of blooming, we know that that's another new year. Also, of course, a new year before that, in the so-called dead of the winter, when there's a winter solstice. And that's the actual birth of the sun, when the sun starts climbing out of the dark days and the days get longer, and the time that we sit and make our plans for the upcoming year. All these seasons, all these circles and cycles and seasons that we have right here before us. As we introduce our special guest this afternoon, Mama Marimba Ani, I was thinking about that proverb that if your only tool is a hammer, you treat every problem like a nail. If your only tool is a hammer, you treat every problem like a nail. And I'm going to look forward to exploring that from the inside out with our special guest this afternoon. Mama Marimba Ani is, of course, the author of Yurugu, a book that is very well known to be a textbook explanation of the settler colonizer mentality, which is still pervasive right here in our midst in these days, right now, ravaging the world. And many other publications, including The Ideology of European Dominance, European Mythology, The Ideology of Progress, Let the Circle Be Unbroken. And as we bring her in, I'm just scratching the surface when I was playing this song today. Something that is in our DNA already, coming from the staple singers. They asking the question, will the circle be unbroken? And Mama Marimba said, let the circle be unbroken. She is the convener of something that has been going on now for 22 years. Or this will be the 22nd year. A very intimate and serious gathering focused on, again, spiritual warfare. This is the Abakosemsunsum. And we're looking forward to reasoning with her just and get an update, as we say, on the African world order this afternoon. Let me make sure that she can hear us and we can hear her. Mama Marimba, good afternoon. Hotep, welcome to the
Hotep. Ras Kofi.
Okay, we
How
hear
are
you.
Good. It's good to see you.
Well, good to be seen. Good to hear you and see you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we give thanks. You know, I couldn't help but playing this introduction that our attorney at War Automatics made of Dr. Amos Wilson, someone I know that you're very familiar with, as a means of introducing you, you know, as a means of introducing you, especially with his emphasis on military science and
absolutely,
and the focus that you have put in our minds, you know, in our forefront in terms of spiritual warfare. And I guess for some people, the two may seem different. So I want to thank you for taking the time to be with us. I know you're deep in the preparation stages for Abakosemsunsum, which is coming up soon, and we definitely want to get the nuts and bolts about that. You know, all the when and the where, and even some about the why. But before we do that, I just want to ask you, as we begin this conversation, help us to see the relationship between spiritual warfare and military science.
The important thing, see, is and what I'm arguing in the book, Let the Circle Be Unbroken, is that spirit is political. And for us, it absolutely has to be. If our strength is our knowledge and our relationship to the spiritual forces of the universe, that's the African strength. We are a spiritual people. Our culture is spirit, and knowing, being connected to that, and that's what the circle is about. Then we are obligated to use that spiritual power for our people, and in behalf of our people, and in behalf of Africa, and in behalf of the of what I call race vindication. If we are, you know, I always ask the question, we are a spiritual people, that is a strength of ours, then why is Africa in the situation it's in? Why are our people here in the situation we're in and have been, you know, for so long? And I think the answer is that we made the mistake of separating the spiritual from the political. The you know, the spiritual from our organizing for African power and for the power of our people. You see, that's a big mistake. And those who are kind of in charge of our spiritual life, you know, the priests who train people, who initiate people, that needs to be a focus, is that how do we use our spiritual power, knowledge, ability, inclination to organize for the well-being of African people, for for instance, we have a continent that is ours. It was given to us by the universe, by our ancestors, which is the richest in the world in terms of natural resources. You know, the things that nature gives to us as Muntu, Bantu, human beings. We have them. And Mother Africa in her womb has given us that. Why then would we be the poorest in terms of economic means, in terms of political power? You know, on the geopolitical spectrum, so to speak, to lack power. And that is because we are not in control of our own resources, that we are still in a situation which is colonial. You know, we use the term neo-colonial that Nana Kwame Nkrumah gave us. But it's actually not new. It is the same old story of Leopold in the Congo. You see?
Yes.
Same old story of the British having governors to tell us what to do. Okay? So that even though we supposedly became independent in Africa, the colonial relationship was maintained. It's still there. And what we've got to do is to connect our spirit and use the power of our spirit as we organize right here, right now, on the continent, in these times, wherever African people are, for African power. Now, what we do at Abakosemsunsum, you said something earlier about the communication actually between those of us who are physically here and those who are spiritually part of us, which are our ancestors. That's very important, because what we mean by spiritual warfare is that we need the power of our ancestors to do the revolutionary work that we have to do. That we call on them, that we communicate with them. And in Abakosemsunsum, we bring them. The community comes together. And in ritual drama, which is a powerful, powerful mechanism, we connect with the ancestral spirits, the warrior spirits, Nana John Henry Clark, Nana Marcus Mosiah Garvey, the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey, Nana Ya Santawa, a warrior in the area that is now known as Ghana, who called us to war. Well, in Abakosemsunsum, they come and they do that. Nana Clark comes and tells us about the ancestors. He taught me about our history. And so Abakosemsunsum is the spirit of history. And it was initiated in 2004 in honor of Nana John Henry Clark, who gave us so much. Well, he taught me. He's my teacher. He's my ideological father. And so this is giving back, because the principle of reciprocity is so very important. And so we strengthen and honor our ancestors so they will strengthen us. And that is an aspect of spiritual warfare. I wanted to say to you also which you may not know, but you were mentioning some of the writings, some of the books, and Let the Circle Be Unbroken, which is really important for what this whole idea of and need for us to think in terms of military science, and to use spirit to do that. We have just published a new edition.
Oh, wow.
And it is an expanded edition. And what has been added is what we call praise song to the ancestors. And in that praise, so that is part of the book, so that anyone who gets the book, they will have access to that. But we will be reciting that. We will be using that at Abakosemsunsum this year in our ritual drama. So I just wanted to mention that because you might not have known about it.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for mentioning that. I remember, as you true to form, true to your nature, you said so much in a short period of time that needs our attention. You know, that we could go into and really digest deeply. One of the things I want to start with is just asking you, as we look at the current reality, and let's just not even talk about, I'm not even talking about, necessarily the masses of our people.
Right.
But even within what has been a movement towards revolutionary activity, let's just say since the second half of the 20th century, right? We see a lot of the influence of Karl Marx and other in African spaces. And oftentimes the whole thing of spirit gets dismissed because Marx said that religion is the opiate of the people and all these kind of things. And I want to really address that and help us to bring balance to that, bring some clarity to that. I mean, you've already started very clearly because as you keep saying.
No, absolutely. That is so important. It happens to be what I'm working on right now at present time. It's very important because you see what we've done is we meant well. And we had those who had the spirit and the energy to make African revolution. But what they've had is a theoretical formulation of that comes from the white Western European world and reflects the worldview of that culture, which is precisely what I am critiquing in the book Yurugu. So I don't think people really study and see what it is that Marx, Lenin, Engels were saying, because if they did, you would see that it's very much, how should I put it, conflicts with the African worldview. Absolutely. You know, it talks about a materialism. It does not understand or give an understanding of culture, which is, that's the basis of everything, right? Africa is actually nowhere in that analysis or framework in terms of the Marxian analysis. And at the historical period when it was being developed and published and made known to everybody and so forth, If you look at the end of the 1800s, then you move into the 1900s. Africa was colonized, and according to their analysis and theory, wasn't ready for revolution, wasn't included in this whole discussion, was really backward. And one of the things that was necessary in order to be ready for revolution was that you had to be involved in capitalism. In other words, you had to be, and there are places where they use the word civilized. And Lenin talks about the most advanced people in the world are France, Britain, and Germany is where we need to look for the development of revolutionary theory. I mean, this is stated. So, you know, the things that we would be critical of as African-centered theorists, as Pan-Africanists, they were all guilty of. That was all a part of what they said. And they're confusing religion with spirituality, of course, because that's where they're coming from. They are Yurugu, so they don't understand spirit. And that's where you get religion being the opiate of the masses. But for us, in terms of revolutionary theory, which needs to be developed, spirit is extremely important. Absolutely. And you know, 9 o'clock even has a statement where he says, you know, you can talk all this revolutionary stuff, but we ain't going nowhere without spirit.
Yeah,
he says it.
He says
That's
it
in his book.
Yeah, he says it absolutely.
Right?
We have a revolutionary dynamic, but without spirituality, we're going nowhere.
Thank you, Baba. Thank you, Baba.
So, Mama Marimba, within that, to take that to a connected point, I would ask you to just simply help us by identifying some of those elements that we have that are intrinsic to our being that would be considered part of our spiritual toolbox. You know, like when I was thinking about this conversation, the proverb came to my spirit. You know, if your only tool is a hammer, you treat every problem like a nail. So maybe there's some. I'm not even saying maybe. I'm saying maybe to be a little diplomatic or whatever, so-called for the radio sake. But I know that there has to be some stuff there that's right there within us already that we just don't even know what to call it, what to put a name on it. Especially because we've been deprived of our culture, and not only deprived of our culture, but also given this false narrative that you just kind of mentioned.
Absolutely.
So help us by understanding. Help us to understand, please, some of those tools to take the whole word spirit from the abstract into the very practical.
Okay. Let me say one thing that. What developed also as a part of Abakosemsunsum was that because I'm a Garveyite, and just looking at it, just amazed at what that movement was able to accomplish, and also their thinking going back to, you know, over a century ago. Right. So if we look at 1920 and the big convention and the declaration that came out of that. But one of the things that I looked at was the newspaper, that because I'm looking at how were those people that worked together with Nana Garvey and himself, how were they able to connect so many of our people more than anybody has ever done before or since? And one of the things I was looking at was the newspaper, the Negro World. And in attempting to get our people to that place again, because we really went backward, you know, from the time of the Garvey movement, or the strength of it. And so we started a newspaper. And that newspaper is the African World. And this will be, we have had 8 editions of that newspaper that come out at Abakosemsunsum. And I mention it, by the way, Abakosemsunsum is May 10th. So that's what we're building towards. But I mentioned it.
Okay, I'm so glad you said that. I had for some reason, I thought it was this weekend coming up.
No. This weekend, I'm going to tell you what's happening this weekend as soon as I finish talking about the newspaper.
Take it down.
In the newspaper, which is totally dedicated to what I've called African sovereignty, which is total power of African people throughout the world. Okay. But in the newspaper, we talk about all of the things that you are raising. And so this question that you're raising, there are articles that have to do with, and I always do an editorial, and the editorial is long, and it talks about our culture and how we need to use it, the strength of it, African civilization, what it gives us, how we should be using our spirit. These are the topics in the editorial, and then there are the other articles in the newspaper talk about, they give information about what is going on right now with our people. So for instance, we have articles on Congo, we have articles on Haiti, we have articles which talk about some of the thinking of our spiritual leaders, like Tata Fukiao of Congo. And people need to, these are the things that we need to be using that answer the questions that you're asking. Okay, so for instance, African Cosmology is a book by Tata Fukiao of Congo, which gives us a grounding in our African cosmological science, really. Our spiritual science. He has a book, Self-Healing Power and Therapy, which tells us that we, as Africans, are born with a self-healing package. And that what we need to do is to learn how to use that. And he talks about plants, he talks about foods, but he talks about energy and how to use that energy. And that's what I think is part of the answer to the question that you're asking, is energy and the use of energy and the understanding of the natural environment, and how what was given to us as Africans was the ability to relate to the natural environment, understand the natural environment, and to use its gifts for life, for healing. Now, all of that is a part of our culture. And so what I do is to study the culture and to teach the culture. And we've got to teach all these things to our children, because for us, it's like, you know, we're talking to each other, but, you know, it's our youth that's got to mean the future. They've got to make these things happen that have to happen for us. And how is that going to happen if we don't address them in this work, you know, that we're doing? So anyway, I guess I'm saying so much, but one thing is that the newspaper is the African World, and it will be available. And it's really a newspaper. It's not a newsletter. It's big. And in fact, this year we have an article on the work of Tata Fukiao about Mbongi, which is that comes out of our culture, our civilization. It is ancient, but it is an indigenous African political system.
Yeah.
You see, that's what we need to learn. Now, you don't get that in Marx. You don't get that from somebody else's, you know, culture and ignorance of ours. No. Ours has got to be rooted in who we are. And what we would see if we studied our culture is that the principles of communalism, of the collective, these concepts and realities are all there in the culture. And what that means is you don't just talk about sharing, you know, of resources. You live it. Children grow up doing that. It's something they do. They eat together. They may eat together out of one bowl, so that when you use the term brother and sister, for them, their cousins or everybody is brother and sister. Okay, that's what it means to be community. So for us, as we move forward, and if we talk about a revolutionary theory, it has got to be influenced by or come out of these basic principles that are part of African civilization, which are spiritual. And so for us, all reality is spirit. You know, that's the basis of reality. And so whatever we see as the material or the physical is based in the spiritual. That is, the material gives form to spirit, but spirit is the energy.
And without understanding that, we have people walking around with superpowers that think that they're liabilities.
Exactly. Or, and we've got an article coming out on this, or they think that they're supposed to rely on this so-called artificial intelligence, which is a machine or a robot, which doesn't begin to be as smart as we are.
Indeed.
You see what I mean? Because Africans have, it's in their DNA.
Yeah.
We have these natural abilities, which do come from spirit, by the way.
Indeed.
You know?
When the white man's ice is colder and everything looks good on the outside. We're talking with Dr. Marimba Ani, and she's taking us home, just giving us a brief introduction or a brief reminder of who we are, you know. And we're grateful for your presence in our community, Mama. I know that we could really use a whole day with you, much less 1 hour. But we're grateful for this time because this is the time we have. I often think of Dr. Charles Finch as a interview, or not an interview, a lecture I play here often. Nana Clark, African Wisdom, and Dr. Finch was interviewing him or introducing him at the United African Movement. And he was talking about how we have this ability to see the universe in a grain of sand, you know.
Right.
To take something so seemingly complex and vast and make it very simple. And we're grateful for your ability to do that, what you've demonstrated over the years. Something else you mentioned before we get to what's happening this weekend.
Okay.
In terms, again, in going right forward to spiritual warfare, I want to ask you, as we are dealing with this whole thing of AI, and we're dealing with what caught my attention really was the kind of a subtitle on the flyer that I saw: Garveyism in the face of Trumpism.
Right.
And again, so much has been made to seem abstract to us,
right?
Even when we're talking about our own culture, you know. That especially the youth, who I know you have a special heart for, take it that way. Take it as something kind of extracurricular.
Right.
We'll deal with the real world, and then when we get a moment, we'll deal with spirit, you know. And so I keep asking the same question in a way, or asking it in different ways, to get you to really help us in the various ways to understand how spirit is so very practical. So using Mr. Garvey as an example, Nana Marcus Messiah Garvey, what does that look like when you talk about Garveyism in a nutshell? Facing, even really, I know you wouldn't bring it up if it wasn't something that could really defeat Trumpism, you know. What does that look like in everyday terms? Drawing from Mr. Garvey's teachings, drawing from his wellspring that he brought to us.
Well, you know, if you look at the words of there's so much, but if you look at the words that the Honorable Marcus Mosiah Garvey said to us, you realize that he said that if you want to know the real Garvey, then look to him in death.
In the world.
Now that is very, very deep. But what it's saying is that that's an African concept. And while you might have heard the words of Christian and so forth, you know, what goes along with that coming out of or seeing it, you know, in his literature, the concept of the ancestors and their continued existence is an African concept. That's where you get that. Okay. And obviously, he had it. He had that concept. He said he would come again. That's what he said. And not only did he say he would come again, but he said he would come with the spirit of our ancestors who had been enslaved, and those colonized in Africa, with those enslaved here in these plantations. He said millions.
Yeah.
And he said that was an army. Now, I believe it. And that's where spirit comes in. And that's where it's real. Is that you have to believe in yourself as an African being. We have to believe in ourselves. And I think that's what Garvey gave us. He told us we were a mighty race. You see, but you have to have, that's only going to come from leaders who believe. And I don't think, and Nana Clark did, and he said that. But if you listen to most of those who are supposed to be leaders for Black people, I don't think that they believe in Africa. I don't think they believe in the African person. I don't think they believe in us. You see? And our power comes from our belief and knowing who we are. Okay? Now, spiritual warfare, the idea for me was this. You had people like Nat Turner. You have people like Denmark Vesey. You have people like Boukman. You have Dessalines. You have all of those people who made the most incredible revolution that has ever happened in history. No other people have ever done that in Haiti, right?
Right.
Now, they actually, let's get back to Nat Turner and Gabriel Prosser, Gaspar Yanga. These people actually organized and fought. And what I'm saying is that therefore there was energy that they put forth.
Yes.
Right?
Very tangible energy.
It was real. And that energy, you see, energy doesn't go away. But that energy still exists. See, now I'm talking spirit, and I'm talking spirit in its relationship to the here and the now. And I'm saying that means we can tap into that energy. That warrior, ancestor warrior energy is still there. And we have ways of connecting to it so that we can use it in our organizing here and now.
Sure. I'm gonna stick a pin right there, Mama Marimba. I gotta play this PSA real quick and then come forward to get some more information about the upcoming events. 445238989 is the phone number. We're tuned in with our Mama, Dr. Marimba Ani. Stay tuned to yourself on the Ancestral Rock.
Atlanta, are you ready for a music experience like no other? WRFG invites you to the inaugural Global Drumbeat World Music Festival, a celebration of world rhythms, culture, and community. Join us on Saturday, April 19th from 3 to 9 p.m. at Westside Motor Lounge, located at 725 Echo Street, Northwest Atlanta, where the sounds of jazz, reggae, blues, Afro house, and other global beats will take center stage. Headlining the festival is the incredible Cuban jazz singer Jessie Diaz and her electrifying band, plus performances by the Venus Kings, Rasta Funk, Stan Seth, Once an Hour Percussions, and so much more. Enjoy delicious international cuisine, unique artists and vendors, and live panel discussions hosted by WRFG Airshifters and featuring artists and community voices. This is a family-friendly event welcoming music lovers of all ages. Tickets are on sale now, and every dollar supports WRFG, your independent, non-commercial radio station right here in Atlanta. So don't miss out. Get your tickets now at WRFG.org, and let's make history together. WRFG Global Drumbeat World Music Festival, where music unites.
Yes, indeed, taking place this strong year. I want to say much love to our brother Stan Zeff, and all the family who was doing such a powerful job of organizing this initiative. And much love to your family too, Brother Stan. I just saw that you funeralized your father yesterday. That was something that was a shock to me because you've been talking the whole time and you've been steadfast on the production, steadfast on the work that it takes to put on this program, and I didn't even know. So from all of us here, much love to your family. On the phone line with us for the next few minutes, we have Mama Marimba Ani, and she is sharing with us about Abakosemsunsum, the 22nd year. And I'm glad that she corrected us that that's not going to be this weekend, but something will be this weekend that is related, and that Abakosemsunsum will be May the 10th. Mama Marimba, before we went to the break, you were talking about how we have the ability to tap into that ancestral spirit in a very tangible way. And you mentioned Haiti as an example. And as an example, I love to call on very often because, you know, our people need receipts, you know, and it's this phone thing. Our people need receipts. Our people need to be able to see. And that's a perfect example because to this day, Haiti can't get a break because of how badly they left the Europeans behind. You know, that was a straight knockdown. And then, as you said, when we start studying the elements of that revolution.
That's right.
What informed, I should say, the political strategy and everything. You know, what was behind all of it. With Cecile Fatima and Boukman and Makandal and all of these people, then we will get to see a real tangible example of how time and time again what we have inside of us is more than enough if we knew what we had. You know.
That's right.
So we're so grateful for you sounding the bang, the reminder. So tell us about what's happening this weekend and then forthcoming.
Okay,
please.
Because I think you know, we can talk about, and people hear us saying how wonderful African culture is and how spiritual we are and so forth. But when it comes to looking at what is happening right now to our people, what are the implications of being here in Babylon, then you don't hear a lot about that. And that is what is happening Sunday, the 20th at Black Dot Bookstore and Community Space here in Lithonia.
Yes.
In fact, it's 6984 Main Street. And later I can give a phone number for people to call if they're interested. But what we will be doing is, you know, people are very up in arms. They're afraid. They're shocked about this new administration in this country. And when I say this country, I mean the U.S. The thing is, it shouldn't be shocking.
As American as apple pie.
I'm telling you. And if people would read Nana Frances Cress Welsing, you would know this is who they are. If you read Nana Bobby Wright, you would understand what's going on. If you read, which may be a little bit more difficult to read, but Urugu, you know, we called it. And that's what we have to understand is the reality of who we're dealing with and what they are likely to do. But the thing is, what do we do?
Yes.
Okay, what's our game plan? Okay, and that is what we will be talking about on Sunday at the Black Dot in Lithonia. Also, available. Some of the books will be available. The circle will be available. Let the Circle Be Unbroken. But also we are going to have, and there is well, I've got so much to tell you, but one thing is there's a new book.
And just before you say that, we have 3 minutes left. So I want to ask you to give me the phone number as well, so I can put it in.
Okay, the phone number is 470-500-6596.
6596.
And they can get any information.
470-500-6596.
That's it.
And that's for Black Dot Culture Center?
That will be for Sunday, and well, it's also for Abakosemsunsum. Any questions about Abakosemsunsum on May 10th, which is for the whole family, bring the family, and that's in Douglasville, 3215 Bright Star Road in Douglasville. That's on May 10th. Okay. But let me say that Sunday people will be able to get Let the Circle Be Unbroken, but we want to introduce, at least talk about a new book, Scientific Pan-Africanism. Oh, really? Everybody needs to get that. Okay. Indeed. And the brother who wrote it is Baba Imhotep out of Baltimore, and he he's also the one of the primary people and organizers of an organization called Pan-Afrikan Liberation Movement, PLM. So a lot of people know about that, but he is the person, the driver kind of that organization.
Okay, Mama Marimba, just because of the time, we got to seal up. However, I want to make a public invitation for you to come forward and share some more, You're highly sought after, and I know you don't do a lot of interviews, so we take it as a great honor that you take time to be with us today, especially in the midst of preparation. And I know you know why we need you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me so much.
Yes, Mama.
Right.
So again, the phone number,
and thank you for your work.
It's an honor. We're in the relay race, so we got to carry the baton with dignity, as our elders have. So I just want to repeat the phone number: 470-500-6596.
Yes.
All right. That's for Abakosemsunsum. Mama Marimba Ani, thank you so much for joining us, and we'll touch base with you very soon. Definitely Sunday, and looking forward to May 10th as well.
Okay.
All right, Mama, thank you.
Hotel. Thank you.
That's Mama Marimba Ani, y'all, and stay tuned for more progressive programming here on WRFG Atlanta 89.3 in Defendel. Again, thank y'all for taking the time to make your pledge, and we invite you to fulfill that pledge right away. Don't wait till tomorrow. Do it today. Tune in.
We'll wait until that stops and then reconnects. Oh, no, you can leave it. Just leave it. It'll do it on its own. Okay. So it disconnects on its own, and then it reconnects. Then that's when the new program starts.